Mechagon is one of the two zones that comes with patch 8.2. Blizzard have essentially said it's Time the Siles 2.0, with it being very clear that they want varied content in this patch to be a really large draw, with Nazjatar seemingly being the more traditional but focused zone, but Mechagon being the more exploratory, whimsical one. Now that we've spent a lot of time there on PTR, has it succeeded? Does this zone show that Blizzard can still put the world in World of Warcraft? Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. Okay, today we are going to be taking a look at the implementation of Mechagon and how it looks on the PTR so far. What exactly is Mechagon from a gameplay, systems, and an experiential perspective? That's what we're doing. So Mechagon is a fairly small island, but to say that it's dense, well, that is just putting it lightly. We could draw endless comparisons here to other pieces of content in the game, but rather than a carbon copy, Mechagon is another iteration on world content. We've had many examples before. You've got the excellent prototype that was the Time the Sile, the rares and treasures of Tanan, the time-gated frustration of the Broken Shore, and the, I guess, breadth of content that was there in Argus. Mechagon is the next sort of step in that evolution. It borrows some elements from those things. It does also leave quite a lot behind as well. Is it a step forward from Argus, or is it an unfortunate regression? Well, today we're going to find out. So we've had access to Mechagon for a while on the PTR, and I've spent more than a few hours there running around and enjoying myself. The first thing that struck me is how loosely directed the zone is. So the initial quests are quite simple. You have a chat with Prince Erasmin, who's the son of the tyrannical King Mechagon, and you help him send a message to his father that things are going to change. You then are shown around Rustbolt, the run-down outpost that the Rustbolt resistance inhabit, which is when the theme of the overarching conflict is explained. Transhumanism, or in this case, transnomism. King Mechagon believes that the curse of flesh truly is a curse, and that through technology, all flesh can and should be replaced with superior mechanical parts. The mechanomes of the Rustbolt resistance kind of agree in part. They think that augmentation is fine, but they think there's a line that must not be crossed. They believe, as most people do, that the old god glitch in the Titan system, the Curse of Flesh, which is essentially the thing that delivered free will to Azeroth, was a blessing in disguise. And when talking to the prince about augmentation, we actually notice that he's got unique dialogue for the classes. To a paladin, he jokes about having an embedded flashlight, and he seriously talks about adding prisms to the paladin as an augmentation. And I think there's just some nice little touches there that I think are paramount to keeping World of Warcraft feeling like a creative endeavor rather than just a product. Anyway, after you've completed the immediate intro, well, you're free to do what you will. You have a few introductory quests to meet Pascal, K1, and 6, who will be performing, tinkering and crafting for you. You'll get your pocket-sized computation device, which is a unique trinket with 3 punch card slots that you can basically, it's a trinket you can customize. And once that's taken care of, then you just set your own goals, most of which, of course, rely on gathering resources from around the map, from quests, from rares, and from treasures. So let's just tackle those things in that order. On Mechagon, there is one type of quest that's conspicuously missing: world quests. They don't exist outside of a one zone-wide daily world quest that rewards resources for killing rares or completing activities. But really here in Mechagon, a much older system is the focus: daily quests. Each day, there is a selection of daily quests available, spread over the island at quest givers and your daily visitor NPCs. These are usually small things and reward a few dozen spare parts, but every little bit helps if you want the resources. This is yet another element of Mechagon that incentivizes running around the island and just seeing what's going on. Now you've then got your daily visitors. These provide unique quests, and they can change what you're doing there each day through their own quests and some other things. Now, the importance of them kind of varies, but, there's some nice things, like the simple, yet I think pretty unique quest when Chromie shows up, and that's kind of exciting. It's another bit of Blizzard using smaller, interesting quests to both add flavor and to tease the future of Warcraft and have a bit of fun with the lore, and that clearly is something that through even those island meta quests, they've been willing to do a lot more quite recently. Now, the rares of Mechagon, thankfully, are a lot more interesting than in previous zones. So they're not as punishing as the Mists of Pandaria rares, unfortunately, in my view. They were great fights, but they do have a complexity in the variety of ways that you find the rares and that you fight them. You've got rares like the Motor Brain Spider that are simple. It hits hard and fast. So if you're a solo player, you better be a tanky class or you better be good at kiting. There are more complex ones like the Foul Manifestation, which tickles you with auto attacks, but instead relies on, well, the fight's basically just based on you dodging AoEs and cone attacks and interrupting it when possible so you don't get blown to pieces. And it just seems like the general idea is that the non-elite rares are soloable with decent gear and plenty of effort, though of course your mileage may vary based on class and on spec. This is a challenge that can be avoided in a larger group or by avoiding rares and just farming easier mobs instead, but having that level of difficulty be there definitely is appreciated for world content. Now the treasures are very disappointingly much like the other treasures in BFA. Chests appear in your minimap, you run over to them, you click on them, you get some spare parts and a chance for maybe some slightly rarer goods. They're random and varied spawning, and placement means that, yeah, it's just doing, a quick scan of the island. Doing that every now and again is a pretty lucrative endeavor, although not particularly interesting alone. While the Warlords of Draenor implementation of treasures might have been, I'd say, the best in the game so far, with its platforming challenges and some of its required items, I'd say that Mechagon's current setup is definitely fit for purpose, and as far as we know, there may be a lot of more WoD-like treasures that actually are completely hidden and will take a lot of effort. Now, after a few laps of the island, killing a few rares, exploding a ton of mobs, and picking up some treasure chests, you will have plenty of resources and some blueprints for Pascal. So without going supremely in depth, Pascal is where you will spend your resources in return for a wide variety of stuff. You've got spare parts, which are the common one. You've got the rare energy cells and the epic chain igniter coils and galvanic oscillators. So those things are your resources. The spare parts come from basically everything. Energy cells come from basically everything, but at a lesser rate. And then the epic resources come from rares, from chests, and occasionally from quests. And then there are a ton of blueprints, and not all of their sources or uses are immediately apparent. Once players can gather a lot more data though, I think, yeah, that'll all be a lot more well documented, but as it stands, I'd say that Mechagon does feel like a bit of a gold rush of exploration. The current costs seem quite high, but they also do seem, I'd say, quite well balanced. Like, if I want the Mechagon mount, yeah, it'll be a few more hours of grinding spare parts, but it feels all fine and fair. And I guess here's the thing that I really want to make an example of, and perhaps this is why my first impression of Mechagon was in a way so strong. As harsh as it feels that it could take hours grinding spare parts, their uses and sources are so varied that it feels like a pretty strong underlying system. While their acquisition is reminiscent of Apexis crystals or of nether shards, they have so many more uses than those things, and they come at such a faster rate that it feels right. The addition of extra materials makes it feel a lot less one-dimensional as well. Having 50 to 60% of the spare parts for Mechagon, but already having all of the other materials, the rares and the epic materials, well, that makes that last little, scrap farm kind of trivial, and it's just interesting how that works. Basically, parallelized resource gathering is the key here, and I guess think of it this way. Your baseline condition is getting some spare parts. So you loot something, you expect a little bit of progress, and you'll always get that. However, every now and again, you will get a nice bonus. You'll get a rare or an epic resource, which, you're sure you'll need, but maybe, in the future, not right now. And this even works in reverse. If you are killing a few rares a day, you're antsy to get your last galvanic oscillator to craft a ring or a trinket, well, still, every kill is going to give you some spare parts that you'll be happy to have for the future. And really, I don't feel that's anything like Titan Forging just because of how it ties into the resource mechanics and how this is very different content. Now, you could make the whole experience a slog by finding a dense, group of enemies and just farming until the RSI kicks in. I'd say that this zone is designed to let you explore, and hopefully the balance of the zone will pan out that way. There are mobs everywhere, so it's like if you want to look in a cave, then you'll have to kill some mobs to get into that cave. Doing that will reward you between 20 and 50 spare parts. Then you look around the cave, you try to find anything that seems out of place, anything that's going on there, anything that's interesting, and then you're going to be on your way. And I think as a gameplay loop, it's a much more satisfying experience than just joining a group and just standing in the same place for hours farming. It's also further incentivized by the spawning of the rares and the treasures around the map, and even further by Jeremy Fiesel's statement that Mechagon is the most secret dense zone in the game, and I'm certainly going to be excited to see what that leads to. Next, we ought to address the rewards of Mechagon because that's a major draw. The rewards as a whole are varied but boiled down to the usual. You're here for your Mechanocat, which is crafted with resources, the paint colors for your cat, which so far seem to drop from rares and from chests around the zone, your Mechano Spider, which you get through a 1 quest per day quest line. There's stuff for achievements, there's more past that. There are pets and tames around the island, as well as a ton of utility materials or items that can be crafted at Pascal and even used in Nazjatar. I'd say that while none of these things are truly stand out, they are exactly the kind of thing that people actually do play the game for, and while there's not an insane amount there, there's more than enough given that it is accounting for a small part of a major patch that is designed to be approached at your own pace. It very much is supposed to be side content. It's also worth remembering that we only know a fraction of what this zone contains, at least when it comes to the smaller things. Next, Mechagon is fairly community focused. I think this is super important here. If you want to earn your Mechano Spider or your Mechanocat without other players, you totally can. However, the zone is intended for community. The secrets are dense. That will no doubt take a lot of time and a lot of searching on the WoW secrets community and just the WoW community at large to find. The community approach is not restricted to secrets though. Some of the rare spawns, they're a little bit arcane to spawn. Or maybe they have odd tactics to defeat. To spawn a rare, a player might have to spend some resources on an item, take that item to the correct place, and then use that item. They may not get the same amount of resources back from what they spent on that item individually, but other players who help will get their own resources without spending. And you might be thinking that seems pointless and unfair, but if you think about this as a community effort where people are contributing regularly, the zone will be a lot more prosperous. Between actually rare spawns, most of which have their own sort of purpose to kill, and the use of the construction projects, well, there's just all these game systems that really just allow for community engagement and cooperation for everyone who is involved. It's only been a little while and we're already seeing the same names pop up on the PTR announcing rares and asking people to slow DPS on rares so that people can get a tag. Now, something that's worth noting here is that it's not necessarily group content, it's community content. I think this is so important. So you can help community efforts and be a part of cooperative gameplay without having to get in a group or talk to people if that's your thing, or if you want to feel a part of it all, there are just so many avenues to do so, be that through spawning in the rares, for others, or by contributing to the secret finding efforts. I think the best part, and perhaps the lesson the retail team they've just needed to learn, is that these things are not systematized. These are the natural outcomes of the design where players want to work together because it benefits them, rather than because they feel like there are written laws that reward them for it. As it turns out, players tend to respond better to how the world works than to how the game works. And it's really good to see that. Now, overall, the mechanics of Mechagon, I think, make for a great zone. Depending on the type of player that you are going to have one of many varied experiences. If you're a solo player running around doing the elites and the rares and all of that stuff, it'll be a satisfying challenge for a little while. If you love the sense of community with the game, well, you can contribute to the zone in whatever way that you want to. It's chock full of secrets, there's lots of amusing interactions, and at its heart, I think it is a really good chunk of World of Warcraft content. It's not going to be months of playtime, and it is weighted to be much more efficient for the people who play for a while every day, as opposed to the people who binge every day. But if you have some time to kill, you absolutely can go there and you can make good progress on your goals, and those goals feel relevant and self-directed. I think the most exciting part here is that Blizzard have basically detached most of it from item level upgrades, like almost entirely. Now, you can craft the Adventurer augments at Pascal, which are rings and trinkets, up to item level 420, which won't be that high once the new raid comes out. You can, get the items from the Mechagon dungeon, but past that, you're there for alternate goals alone. And going back to what I said at the beginning of this video, this is an iteration, it's a live experiment. Blizzard are going to be keeping a close eye on player engagement in Mechagon because this is them trying to work out if content on a divorced progression track, a reason to log in and do current content that's not going to be made irrelevant by lucky Titan Forges or simply by being a heroic or mythic raider, they're going to be paying attention to whether that works. So this is the first step in a long, I think arduous, and I think absolutely necessary journey. Mechagon genuinely does bring out a really good balance of the best of what World of Warcraft has to offer. It's a really good slice of it. If Nazjatar is of a similar quality and is more focused on what the other parts of Warcraft are like the personal power progression and the more mainstream lore and character content, then I do think that patch 8.2 will be pretty darn well-rounded and great. Now, I'm not sure what Blizzard can do before 9.0 to reverse the dissatisfaction and disengagement players have felt in this expansion, but I think 8.2 is definitely a step in the right direction. It shows, I think, some good thoughts from them, and I think for those who currently enjoy the game or maybe iffy in the game, but mainly just feel like it's lacking content, I think this will be a really good patch. So, if you've played Mechagon on the PTR, please let me know if you agree or disagree, specifically in the value of the rewards, how the grind feels, and the difficulty level for your class and spec. And after all, it's the PTR version, and the more constructive criticism and considered feedback there is, the better. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. Please let me know what you think down below, and with that, I'll see you next time.